Hello again, everybody. Gary Ferman here with Stephen Wagner, and we are discussing today the most recent Miami Hurricanes commitment of defensive back Amari Wallace from Miami Central High School. A commitment that's been really long in the waiting. Miami's been recruiting Amari for, probably about 2 years now. And Amari finally pulled the trigger on Thursday night. And Stephen, this is believed to be a big commitment for Miami. Amari is one of the top defensive backs from South Florida. Usually that bodes well for how they do in college. No guarantees, of course. But he is a kid that is playing safety at Miami Central, but will probably project to more of like a nickelback in college. He's 5'11", 170, plays like a safety, but doesn't really have the size of a college safety. So that's why he might be the perfect fit for that nickelback position in Lance Guidry's defense. Likes his guys in that spot to have safety skills so that they can play the run game, but also be able to match up with receivers and cover. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on this Amari Wallace commitment.
Yeah, this is a commitment that's been some time in the making. We saw it coming quite a ways away. It seemed like everyone logged their RPMs for him earlier this spring. Miami was the favorite for a very long time. Make absolutely no mistake. Every mock class, every RPM that you saw was for Miami. There really weren't very many other schools that were very seriously talked about as major threats to land. Amari Wallace has a ton of ties to the university. Obviously, there's a ton of central players playing at Miami. Mario Cristobal and his staff have really prioritized the heck out of Miami Central since they arrived there 3 years ago. His former high school coach, Roland Smith, who's one of the winningest high school football coaches ever in the state of Florida, who won championships at Miami Northwestern and Miami Central. He was actually the coach that really first gave Amari Wallace his first shot. And, Amari's belief and trust in Roland Smith was one of the factors in developing that level of trust between him and the University of Miami. Like you said, he's got a little bit of a smaller frame, so he probably projects at more of a nickel rather than a traditional safety. He definitely has safety skills, not fantastic in man coverage, but definitely good and definitely capable. He has skills that I think can continue to be honed. He's also a real menace on special teams. He blocked 3 kicks last year. So I personally would, kind of be on the lookout for him if he doesn't jump off the page right away and he's not an immediate defensive contributor for Miami. I would look at him to maybe kind of start seeing the field at first in special teams before he eventually works his way into, a more consistent defensive role, which is pretty common, and it's what we see quite a bit of with most young college players. First they're able to get some reps on special teams, then they eventually transition into that full-time role. This is a guy that Miami really needed to get if they kind of want to, bring back, that whole state of the U idea where, all of the top South Florida talent just stays home and naturally goes to Miami. This is one of those guys that they really needed to get, and they got him.
Well, to me, like, what's really important is not just getting South Florida kids. You got to get the guys that are the best South Florida kids, the guys that are going to be starters for you for multiple seasons. Because if you have guys that are just from South Florida that are just depth fillers on the roster, that's not always a great thing. You got high school teammates in town, you've got coaches in town, youth league coaches, high school coaches, you've got family in town, and they can all get a little ornery when their guy is not getting the play, and especially when it's the hometown. So Miami identified Amari Wallace a long time ago as potentially being that kind of guy. And the thing that sticks out when you go watch Miami Central is this kid's leadership on that football team with his peers. And he's a guy that is looked up to, certainly on the field and probably off it as well. That's the kind of vibe that you get. And then once the game begins, his skills really show in so many different ways. Just the way he gets involved in the run game, the way that he tracks the football when it's in the air, his ability to be physical with receivers at the line of scrimmage. This guy has so many at the high school level of the skills that you want to see in a guy that you're bringing into college to be a defensive back, Steven. So, I guess if you sum it all up, people can read the stories on the website that we've got. We've got multiple stories on the website about this commitment. But when you sum it all up, it seems like this is one to be extremely excited about. The only thing that I was wondering about was he's only the number 240 overall prospect. He is a 4-star, but he's a low 4-star, 240 overall in the On3 industry ranking. Why do you think that people are a little slow to get on this Amari Wallace train?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why his ranking may be a little bit lower than some other players is he is very, very aggressive, but at times he can allow his aggression, his desire and enthusiasm to kind of make the big play, to kind of get the best of him a little bit. You can see sometimes in coverage, even though he's tracking the ball, he's not necessarily playing the receiver particularly well. He'll have a tendency to reach out. He'll have a tendency to reach out and hold, or have a pass interference flag against him. Um, does have a few holes that I think can continue to be improved upon in his coverage, especially in man-to-man in man-to-man defenses. He is fast. He's not blazing fast. He's not going to blow you away with his speed. He is strong, but he's not stunningly strong where you go, man, that guy has freak strength. He's not a guy who was built in a lab, but he is a very, very aggressive player who brings that aggressive mentality that they teach and hone over there at Miami Central. And I think that it's something that a lot of people are going to be excited about. I do think that there are going to be a few things that can be cleaned up. One thing is he has a tendency to really go for the big hit. He wants to lower the shoulder pad and completely obliterate you and knock you out. That's something that's probably going to need to be kind of taught once he gets to the next level. Is, hey man, you can't always have the boot, like the kill shot on a defenseless quarterback. You can't always just absolutely obliterate a receiver who's coming over the middle into your zone the second that he touches the ball, because nowadays those are considered penalties, even though at the high school level, and especially in South Florida, those are penalties that aren't always called. And they're things that you are able to get away with. I think that he does have a little bit of refinement that's needed, and I think if he had a little bit of a higher floor right now, I don't doubt his ceiling, but I mean if his floor was a little bit higher and he maybe looked like he was a little bit closer to being immediately game ready, I think that would help his ranking a little bit. But we will see how he develops this fall, because he had a very good junior season. He had a very good spring. I had a chance to see him a few times. He did look very good. And if he has a big fall, he will definitely continue to. I definitely think he'll continue to climb in the rankings.
All right. Well, I don't think you were built in a lab either. I know I wasn't built in a lab. Matt Shodell, maybe, but he's a whole different type of animal out there, so you just never know. But anyway, Amari Wallace, a commitment to get excited about. You guys can check out all the coverage right now on CaneSport.com. If you're not yet a subscriber, hustle on over and subscribe right now. Perfect opportunity here with this Amari Wallace commitment, and we think there could be one or two more coming this week too behind it. So get on over to CaneSport.com. Join our site. We will be so happy to have you, and you will not be sorry. We promise you that. So for Stephen Wagner, I'm Gary Ferman. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time, everybody.